coming up. Okay, so we are going to talk about communicating scientific ideas clearly. It seems like none of you care about project management, although I care a lot about it. But hopefully all of you have these skill sets. And then research-oriented data collection. I think I will briefly run through it just because a lot of you are sort of in the thick of this. Okay. All right. So remember last week we talked about, how research is like maximizing information gain, which you should have seen from decision trees, and how we can, run experiments. And we also talk about how super teams, based on Harvard Business Review, is based on many, many experiments, failing fast and running lots of experiments. So, so a lot of this will overlap with my publication 101 bootcamp, but let's just be patient here. So why is writing and hard? So writing is a little unnatural. So a lot of times when we talk and when you meet with me, I am painfully aware of how much I babble and how much my brain is sort of a jumble of things. Um, we really babble. And if you look at young children, they don't have a tendency to bake, brew, or write. So you can see that Charles Darwin really compares writing to baking and like a very, very clear process. So readers who, when you read a paper, right? When you write a paper for someone to read, or when you read a paper, these people that we write to, right? Like if you think of signal processing, there is somebody who is sending the message, and then there's a receiver on the other end who's receiving the message. Um, we don't actually know who the reader is exactly. We can imagine who they are. We can sort of imagine who the audience is. But the reader can actually, react, take a break, ask clarification questions. Like when we have this session is actually for you and I to interact and for you to ask me questions on whether your research is going in the right direction or not. So a good style of writing is for you to have a mental model, right? There's somebody talking, there's somebody who's receiving. So you need to know like the context, right? What does your audience know? What is the context your audience is in? Is it ACL? Is it a fourth year course? Is it to a general public in Toronto? Is it to a bunch of, 6-year-olds? Is it to a high school? And so then you need to know what knowledge does your listener have. So ACL is usually someone with like a fourth year NLP or maybe like, master's. And then you need to know like how sophisticated they are, what kind of language they need. So you really need to put yourself in the other person's shoe. So I'm gonna find an image for encoder decoder. Um, I know it's all very machine learning, but listener and speaker. So when I teach NLP, we often have this model of encoder, decoder, listener, and speaker. Um, oh, none of these are really great images. I guess I should remove encoder, decoder. But it's sort of like this. They're sending a message. My slides has a really good image, but this is sort of the idea that we have. Um, oh, did I copy? No, it didn't copy. Let's try again. Copy image. Yeah, so it's sort of like this image here with the encoder, decoder, a listener. Ugh, it's not pasting. Why? Okay, here it is. Yeah, so if you take a machine learning, or if you're just a nerd and you take an engineering, there's, the speaker sends a message and the listener listens a message. So, there's a message sent is encoded to something, and then the listener has to decode it. Oh, here it is. Here's the exact same thing, encoder, decoder. Same thing with this picture here, right? Um, there's a encoding, there's a decoding. Um, but you cannot be sure. So I don't know. I shouldn't be teaching you machine learning. Uh, but it's sort of like there's some like hidden message here, and there's an encoding, there's a decoding, And hopefully somewhere along the way you're passing along the same message, right? Like a lot of times it might be miscommunication between you and your parents or maybe you and your friend. And it's just because, the message you sent and the message they receive might be different, right? So this is what the good communication is all about this encoding decoding process. And so that's the story. I should have shown you the picture first. I think I really enjoy this picture. Um, so so when you write a paper, you're not always there, right? Like when you talk to me about your research, I can be like, "Oh, what does this mean? What happened here? Why is it like this? Tell me your story. What is missing here? I don't understand this part." But when you write a paper, it has to be all clear and all right there, and it has to communicate it clearly. So good communication requires lots and lots of work, which is this last point here, which um okay. So how academics are taught to write? Um, I feel like everyone here is trained to write decent, but I know that, like back in the old days, my supervisor liked to use like legalese, corporatese, or academy, like very technical language, right? It's like non-construct. There's a lot of abstraction, there's a lot of concepts, and it's really like very difficult to read. This is called poor compression, if you were looking at, information theory again, and is not really motivated for clarity. So for writing clearly, there's a few books that you can look at if you like books. There's Sense of Style by Steven Pinker. There is Consolidations of Philosophy by Bolton. So the idea is that, you know, um, difficulty, which is hu human stupidity to accept in payment. So, there's similar arguments about complicated code as well. Difficulty, you want to make things as simple as possible. So there's actually a few papers in computational linguistics called what is it like ridiculously simple or ridiculously easy algorithms, things like that. Yeah, so how to write clearly. Um, so, you want to start by having the right English and grammatical structure. But now, okay, so we used to teach this before the days of ChatGPT. Now that we have ChatGPT, all of you should be able to write clearly. Um, there's in cognitive science there's also sentences are easier to read and sentences are harder to read, and I will actually go through the mechanism if there's time in our publication 101 at the very end. There's actually like specific ways of writing sentence structures and paragraph structures. There's phrase bank. So I always tell students to use phrase bank because they have it's like MATLAB where you can grab, you know, sentences. So if you were doing, I think some defining terms, because I always force you guys to define terminologies. So, you know, so X can be broadly defined as, X can be loosely defined as, X can be defined as, right? There's different ways of defining things. So, if these are very technical language you can use, so you can always like grab one of these sentences to make things sound better. Also, you can look at ways that things are being written in ACL anthology. So, Iroko Bench is one of our, actually, World Cuisine is our most cited data set paper, and it's very well written by Genta. We're just very honored to be, yeah. So here's World Cuisine. And you can look at past best papers for how things are written. So you can see, all the different, you can see examples of how things should be written well. Um, okay. And so there's different ways of writing clearly. Um, there's also this book, the 3-minute rule, right? How to get to the point within 3 minutes. So, as a writer, you will see something in your mind and you want to communicate it to someone else. Just like I'm telling you something and you're receiving it, but you don't really see it yet. So I will need to position it so that you can see it with your own eyes so that you're on equal grounds. So my goal is to help you to see the thing that I see the same way I see it. And this is like a conversational style. Um, oh, anyway, so that's that's okay. This video link is broken. And so how do we help each other see what we need to see? So here's an example, right? Um, so he gets the ball rolling in his search for the Holy Grail, but finds neither magic bullet or slam dunk. So he rolls with the punches and let the chip fall where it may while seeing glass half full, which is easier said than done. So where all these yellow things are cliches, and so we should avoid them. And then there's also a lot of like technical language like exposure, damage, extreme exposure, CO. Um, now, it's not just academics, but politicians, consultants, engineers will also use very technical jargons and languages. So basically, what this label says is that, it can kill you in minutes, but this warning sign is very, very long and drawn out. So that's why some people have, these danger images. Yeah. Yeah. So here's another book called How to Learn to Write Badly. And it talks about, nominalizations and passivization. So, passivization is like making things passive, and you're avoiding saying who did it, which is very complicated. So it goes for things like, degrees of freedoms in ordering information. So why is being the passives commonly misused in bad writing? So a good writer tells the story. It tells, who is the hero and who is the villain. So protagonist and bad writers write down in the order that things occur. So then they begin with the outcome of the event and then they throw in the cause as an afterthought. So so we can why is this? Sorry, this is formatted really badly. So can someone read these sentences for me? If there's no volunteer, I'll just ask for someone. Okay, Divnor. Oedipus. Oh, hello? Okay, can someone else read? Aaron?
Oedipus killed, is it Laius? Laius?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oedipus killed Laius. Laius was killed by Oedipus. It was Laius whom Oedipus killed. It was Oedipus who killed Laius.
Yeah, so I guess I'll ask the next. Sorry, Divnor, maybe your mic is not working. Fiona, which one was the easiest to understand and which one was the hardest?
Uh, I think for me the first sentence was the easiest.
Mm-hmm.
It Oedipus killed Laius, and then um, I guess the third one it was Laius whom
Yeah,
Oedipus killed
that
was a
was
bit more
super hard.
complicated.
Yeah. That was super. Yeah, so, I mean, we've all had made sentences. I mean, I feel like I've definitely made sentences like this when I was writing papers, right? So, just be cognizant of like how difficult are things to read. So, um, ideally earlier in the sentence, you'll have the topic sentence for the to ground the context for like, an intro sentence to tell the reader what it's about. And then later you can focus on, details, new information that reader should be building on. So I will also teach some of this in the writing class when it comes up. And so, you don't want things to feel choppy, disjointed, incoherent. And a lot of times this happens to first-time writers, right? They just list a bunch of things together, like a bunch of bullet points, and they don't link it together. So you really want one sentence to flow into the other. But of course, you don't want to be like AI to have a bunch of like meaningless sentences that are not, very informative. Yeah, so with the passive voice, there's you shouldn't avoid passive voice, But just be aware of when you should use it and where you should use it. And I'll teach it in the publication 101 when the time comes. Yeah. So, okay. So can someone read that? I guess I'm just gonna call on whoever. Miriam and then Nasser. Yeah, Miriam, read this one.
A messenger arrives from Corinth. It emerges that he was formerly a shepherd in Mount Kithron, and during that time someone gave him a baby. Another shepherd from the Laius household, he says, whom someone had told to get rid of the child, gave the baby to him.
Very good. So there's three passive voice. So next person, Nasser, could you read these ones?
Eyes on the messenger, he was given a baby. Eyes on the baby he sees was given to him by another shepherd. Eyes on the other shepherd who had been told to get rid of a child.
Yes. So compared to the active voice, there's like three different perspectives, right? There is, like you see, there's a messenger, there's a baby, there's shepherds. So, there is an invisible voice that is acting like the director to the story. Yeah. So, sometimes when you're writing something, you have the curse of too much knowledge. A lot of times when I teach, when I write something, I don't know what to tell you because I don't know what you don't know. So sometimes it's hard to imagine the other person, right? Like it's hard to be like the person on the other side doesn't know anything. So what do we need to tell them? It's impossible for us to fully understand um, how much information we can give them and how much is too much at once and how much is a little bit at a time. So, which is why today I'm gonna give a quick intro on data collection for Nasser, and then also like the introduction for the introduction for Santiago, and just for everyone who's submitting a paper for the August ARR, because that is important. So to defend on this curse of like too much knowledge, always keep your reader in mind. Yeah, so going back to the first slide, keep your reader in mind, but we're not very good at guessing what other people know or not know. So the best solution is to ask for feedback, write a draft to yourself, and then wait, and then read it back to yourself, and then read it out loud and record it to yourself. So those are all really great advice from communicating. Visualization. You can always visualize with some images. I personally really think images are very important, so you need to have a very strong figure one. The problem of apologize. This is a Canadian thing when we're talking, but we want to be not to be too self-conscious or apologetic. Also hedging. Hedging is my current biggest pet peeve. So apologizing, is not too much of a pet peeve for me. Maybe it's because I'm Canadian, but hedging is my worst pet peeve. So so these are words like these. So right. Um, so these, things that are fuzzy or not even wrong. So we want to be clear and wrong rather than fuzzy or not even wrong. So let me just explain that more clearly. So who is next? Qifeng, can you read these words for me? This list of words that you should avoid using. Oh, whoops, sorry.
Yeah, so somewhat, fairly, nearly, similarly, in part, relatively, comparatively, predominantly, to some extent, so to speak, presumably.
Yeah, okay. So Qifeng, can you also read these two?
Okay, so Vancouver is a rainy city. Vancouver is a relatively rainy city.
Yes. So what is the difference between those two sentences?
So the second one is like really blurry, so it doesn't
Yeah, so
provide the information
so
clearly.
I complain about this a lot in some of the newer students writing. It's sort of like our experiments are much better or our results are substantially improved. I don't want, like, just tell me that how much, right? Just tell me Vancouver is a rainy city with an annual rainfall of blah blah blah, or a monthly rainfall in August of X. do not tell me relatively or similarly or relatively or presumably. So if you use AI or ChatGPT, is really good at these like extra fluffy words. I call them like like these words actually make things really fuzzy and like not even wrong. Like just very imprecise and very annoying to scientific people, to academic writers, and also it's like very much easy to be picked up as like Gen AI writing. So I will complain about this when I start Publication 101, which is after I teach this. So if you guys don't want to learn about writing proposals and timelines, we'll probably move directly into Publication 101 again. So this is like this is um this is hedging is definitely like to be avoided in all writing. So in your writing, be precise. Okay, all right. So mm, let me see. Um, so there's also syntax and grammar, but you know, this is stuff that you can now get ChatGPT to check for it. So I'm not so worried for you anymore. And you know, but the key is to write your first draft. Um, And the first draft is always going to be terrible, but the key is to write your first draft, and which is going to lead very, very nicely into my next section about what you should do for the first draft. Well, data collection, I'll briefly mention that later. But you know, just to summarize, I know there's a lot of like interesting languaging here, but just to summarize, you know, really to communicate clearly, there's a lot of technical writing maneuvers, but it is about you as a speaker trying to deliver a message to the audience in the clearest and easiest way possible. Okay, so that is this section for today. I just want to make sure that I cover two of the sections that people asked for so that we do have it available so that yeah. So again, I cannot emphasize how much I hate hedging from ChatGPT. I don't know how many times you have ChatGPT generate a sentence and it basically is like a meaningless content. Just a lot of really pretty sounding words put together. And it just, yeah. So here is some more examples of hedging. Um, warning, warning, AI likes to hedge. Um, and upon reflection, what I think hedging really annoys me is because it's usually like a summary sentence at the end of a paragraph. Like the last sentence generated by AI is always something ridiculously like general. It says nothing. It just says like, it's like it can be like this project is very important to humanity because it will save us all from the end of the world. And it's going to be like that. And you can put it at the end of any sentence and it just drives me like any project and just drives me totally nuts. So sorry, I'm now raging. So let's put that aside. Yeah. So you know, when you write in scientific writing, one thing I always want is firm and precise numbers, right? When you say significant, it has to be statistical significant. So don't put pretty and ambiguous things together, string a bunch of pretty sentences together, um, which is what ChatGPT does. Also, I really want to know why you're doing something. When you're writing the methods, when you're writing the data, when you're writing the results, when you're writing the discussion, always talk about why you're doing something and why you're doing something. AI doesn't do that. So, yeah. Yeah, so there's hedging called intensifiers. So, you know, like they're adjectives to describe something like always or certainly or clearly, you know, these results are clearly significant. Like, do not do that. And then there's also like other words like actually, appear, could, essential, most, often, possibly, suggest. These are all examples. Um, so what I would do is just look at your writing, and then if you can take that word out and it becomes clearer, does it. So what it does is it hides responsibility. It reduces the value of the information. It it actually makes it sounds like the writer, like you, the writer, doesn't fully understand what is happening or what you're saying. So you sort of try to sound safe. So it's not ideal. So we're gonna have a few more examples. So let me see who's next on the list after Qifeng. Santiago, can you read this first one here?
Okay. The
The
results may
result.
suggest,
Hmm?
Santiago?
Yeah.
Yeah. The results may suggest that increased temperature could potentially have an effect on enzyme activity, which might indicate a possible relationship between temperature and reaction rate.
Yeah. What are some hedging words in there that will make me very unhappy?
It might,
Yeah, may, could, might. Hopefully, none of you have used this in your.
potentially,
Oh, yeah, where's that? Potentially.
could
Possible,
potential.
possible, potential. Oh my gosh. Okay, I can't even read this anymore. Okay, now read me the good sentence.
Enzyme activity increased with temperature between 20 Celsius and 40 degrees Celsius, with reaction rate rising by an average of 35%. Activity
Yeah.
declined sharply above 45 degrees Celsius.
Oh, love this. I want to see this in your final reports and your ACL submissions. None of this stuff. I read so much of this last term, the last submission, because a lot of people were submitting for the first time. Okay, Sonia, read me the AI one and the human one here. AI.
Okay, these findings may suggest that the observed changes could be influenced by multiple interacting factors, which might warrant further investigation to better understand the underlying mechanisms.
Okay, tell me what I get mad
Yeah.
at.
So there's may, could be, multiple like factors, which is also vague, which
Uh,
like might,
mm,
um, and then yeah, that's
okay,
all.
now read me this one.
The increase in reaction rate is consistent with temperature-dependent kinetic theory, while the decline above 45 degrees Celsius likely reflects thermal denaturation of the enzyme. However, protein stability was not directly measured in this study.
Yeah, so very firm, right?
Yeah.
So, it links to a theory, there's some rates, there's some inference. It just, it's clear. Um, None of this, not so sure stuff. You can put it in the conclusion, like the very last sentence of like your entire paper, right? Like reserve one sentence for this at the very end of your paper, but do not fill your paper with this. All right, another example. Who's after Sonia? Sean.
Yeah, so AI style. The data may indicate that light exposure could potentially lead to increased plant growth, suggesting that light might play a role in growth
Okay, now
outcomes.
read me the good one.
Plants exposed to high intensity light grew 22% taller than controls because light intensity was experimentally manipulated. This result supports a causal effect of light on growth under the conditions tested.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's very clear. Okay, and then next person. Oh, everyone, Yiwei.
One limitation of this study may be that the sample size could be considered relatively small, which might limit the generalizability of the findings.
And
And
then
the sample size n equal 12 limits statistical power and may obscure small effect sizes. As a result, non-significant findings should be interpreted cautiously.
okay, great. Yeah, so there is some these are called weasel words or overly fancy words. So there's some videos on this. You can watch if you want, but we can go through it in greater detail. But I think I just want to get that out of the way because a lot of people sort of stumble into using AI without realizing that there are some things that really annoys scientific readers. Okay, all right. So first things first, let's cover what Santiago's interested in. So some of you have seen this already, so you can sort of ignore me for now. And then I'll also cover a little bit of what we need to cover in the data. But maybe we'll just all turn on our camera and take a picture before I let some of you go. Um, thank you, Iwei. Nasser, can you turn Nasser? Okay. Nazar, can you turn on the camera? Oh, thank you. Okay, great. Good to see you, everyone. Okay. So hopefully everyone at Ontario Tech can come for pickleball and maybe like work. Oh, Nazar, not yet. Come back. Okay, great. Come for pickleball and stuff tomorrow. Okay, so how to write the introduction and how to outline your paper. So this is like what some of you are interested in. I'll teach this in more detail later, but I think I'm just gonna give you the 5-minute summary of a half hour, a full hour lecture. How do I paste? Okay. You will find the link to this somewhere, okay? Yeah. So, so when preparing your introduction, there's 3 steps, right? There's making a plan, write, and then do lots of editing. Oh, my camera disappeared. I think, oh, oh no. Sorry. I'm trying to turn my camera back on. How do I turn my camera back on? Okay. Sorry, there's a shortcut key that always gets me. Okay. So I teach this to everyone, and you should all know this, but for your final report and for your ACL submission, you should have 3 main points. 1, you should know what your contribution is. 2, you should know what problem you're solving. And 3, what is the results with the evaluation or, the table or whatever experiment you ran that proves whatever you're saying. Um, um, and so, here is the example, and I go through that example with you. But the key is that it's better to have one main idea, right? Like a aha moment for the reader, than to have too many ideas at once. So this is, I don't know, like 10 different ideas on one unicycle, like very confusing. But it's easier to just, it'll be better if you can just take all the ideas and sort of put it around one. So I think Santiago, your papers really sort of like this, right? Like sort of like this. It's like if we do this task, then this happens. This task, and this happens. This model, then this happens. And this model, then this happens. With this data set, then this happens. With this language, then this happens. It's all like it's like this unicycle. It's exactly like this crazy unicycle, right? There's a lot of things. So I do like your proposal of making it like one central recipe, right? Like here's a recipe that we can follow. And it might look like this, but the aha is that there's one central theme and idea. So, your contribution, the problem is solving, and the evaluation. And then break it down to the main task, the state of the art in the current literature, the flaw in the state of the art, and then your idea with solution and prove that it works. And I think the important thing is to see it all in the first page of a paper. So the first page of a paper is sort of like if you like, I know this is outdated, but in the Marvel superhero movie, there is what is it? Like a movie preview. I don't know how many seconds there are now, like 30 seconds, 10 seconds, right? And in that 10 seconds, you can know the whole story of that movie so that you're tempted to go and watch that movie. So that's what the first page of a paper is, right? It's like that like I don't know, that like movie preview that you see. Like there's a very catchy title. The title has to be super catchy, and I'll teach you about that in Publication 101. There's a very, very important thing is your figure 1. It has to be the most perfect figure on the planet for this. I find the more professional the figure with a good title is 90% of the battle to getting your paper accepted, because getting that done means that you've thought about the project deeply and that you have results and you know what the conclusion is. So it's sort of like your superhero Marvel movie has a conclusion. It has like it has like an entire story arc, and you are able to tell it through the title and the image. So that is a large part of the battle. The abstract has to be written in like very easy language that your grandmother or your 6-year-old cousin can understand. And then those 5 components I just told you, right? The task in the first sentence here, the state of the art, you can see the 3 sentences already cites like, I don't know, like 15 papers, 20 by this part. The flaw in the state of the art, which is like 1 simple sentence. Then the main idea, which is like 2 sentences. And then a little bit more about what they did. And so what they did is they talk about what they did, but they also cite a bunch of papers, right? They don't They don't say, here's a recurrent network, and this is the all the details of a recurrent network. They just say, here are the papers from image capturing and object detection. And so they just cite the papers. And then they sort of talk a little bit about proof that it works, right? They ran experiments on 94,000 images, 100,000 image captions. And then I think in the abstract, they briefly mentioned that, they evaluated and there's speed and accuracy improvements over the baseline. I mean, if the results are really, really, really good, then you should say how much you improve by. But if it's not like very good, you can just say like it improves for like Uriel, Qifeng, yeah, York's paper is awesome. It's always like it improves for most of the tasks, or almost all the tasks except one. Actually, for I think Merlin generally improve overall for all of them, right, Miriam? Yeah, it was, I don't know. I like months before it was like not doing good, and then just suddenly it started doing better. So it's one of those patience game where you have to keep trying. Um, Welcome to research, so you have to keep trying. Yeah, so I will teach this in research 10 in publication 101 in gory details, but you can read it yourself. But I will teach it in gory details, and those of you who have seen it before, you don't have to do it again. Yeah. And the last thing is I want to cover what Nazar wanted to ask about, which is data collection. So data collection, I think I would just consider into, okay, let's go back to research 101, sorry. I will consider data collection in two phases. So one, Nazar, definitely do that introduction thing that I'm asking Santiago to do. So you should do it as well. And Sean, you should do it too because you're also Sean and Divnor, you're both submitting some. Okay, everyone submitting
Yeah.
something in the next 2 months, write the introduction. And everybody who's submitting a final report, write an introduction. It will at least help you map where you're going. And then when it comes to data collection, I think is a combination of knowing, you know, knowing from your introduction what you need to prove, right? Like you have your contribution, and then you have to have an experiment that proves it. So, so Nazar, like, what is your contribution of your paper? Can you tell me?
I'm leading the human evaluation, and now I'm reproducing the results and writing some parts of the paper.
No. The contribution of your paper, the main story. Like, what is the
So yeah,
main
we are trying to find how the closed models and open models behaves on the mental health
prediction?
social media posts.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have some human. So the proof, what is the proof in your data that shows that it works? And that's a human, right?
That's a human right?
The human annotation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's part of the data collection is the human annotation. So I guess you know what is easier for me is to ask. Sorry, this is very now I'm like really drilling in on people who are publishing in August. So I apologize, but this is sort of like a workshop at this point. So what is your contribution? You told me that, Nazar, and what problem is it solving, Nazar?
Like just a classification, a type of classification of people who feel depressed or not depressed on social media based on their posts.
Okay, perfect. So that is the task. And what is the evaluation that proves it? Like, what are the results?
Okay, we are trying to do a human evaluation on a stratified sample from the results. Like we have 5,000 samples for every language. We have 4 languages, some of them low resource languages, some of them mid resource languages, and the rest is high.
Okay, so you know exactly what you need to do for your first author paper. So that's good. So you contribution problem and then results that prove it. So you have your task and then some literature review, your idea, and then results that it works. So so at the next point of your paper publication then is to work on, so everybody who is submitting something in August, make sure you do that. And then, run your results, make sure it proves that. But the next things to think about is, once you have the results, you have to think about how you want to present your results. Is it using bar graphs and line graphs? Is it using, scatter plots for trends? Is it using pie charts? And instead of using like a dot or a bar, I always ask for these distributions, like a box plot or a violin plot where you can actually see the distributions. I also like spider diagrams. I've become a fan of them. I also really like heat maps. So I'm just running through this quickly with you. So this is a really good final report by some U of T students. Two of them work together on LinguaQuest for Canadian culture learning. And part of what they did was just to take every single graph they could think of and try to visualize their data and figure out which one actually demonstrates their point the best. So you see they have some heat maps, they have some bars, they have some more heat maps, they have some violin plots, they have some line plots. This is a different paper. I think this is from a collection of papers, but I always like people who present their tables in like a heat map format. This is from Jose. I really complained about the green, but he never changed it. Don't use red and green because there's a large percentage of the male population that's colorblind. I also really care about presenting these statistical significant points. I think that just speaks to the quality of your work. So make sure you have these. Sometimes people also York. I think yeah, these are from York and from David Anagraha from Stanford. They also put how much increase and decrease by with some color. Um, of course, red is not perfect, but they use blue and red, so I'll let that slide. More violin plots, more bar plots. Sometimes I ask them to rank. So I think one, yeah. So this table is ranked, I think, by one of the tables. I don't remember which one is ranked by um, the order of greatest to least. So, Nazar, I know you wanted to learn about data collection, but this is sort of like collect the data and then try to present it in the best way possible. So, yeah. So I'll probably go through this next week. But there's scientific data collection. There's also data analysis. Most of us here we do machine learning data collection. Um, but some of us like I guess Sonia and Aaron, you do like people data analysis. So that is also very interesting. Okay. All right. So that's all I have for now. Oh, and then when you're collecting data, I think I always say that so I gave you the literature review where you would collect your literature, which is a different type of data, in a table, right? So where's the literature review? Okay, I can't find the literature review anymore. It's somewhere along here. Right here. Right, your literature review is collected in a table of all the different papers. Um, of all the different tables. In fact, one of the students created a Google form to collect their literature review. So that's one way of storing data. I also like people to sort of store their data in a spreadsheet that you can share with your team. So this is one of our experiments that took like 600 experiments over 10 languages. And you can see that, there's a table that everyone filled in. I think Santiago and Miriam, you have tables like this. Especially for Santiago, like when we did this project, I think we have 4 students running experiments. So every student was responsible for like one set or one row or one column. So a table like this is important. And also everybody being able to reproduce a baseline is important, right? Like you have to make sure that whichever machine you run your results on, they all have to have the same baseline, give or take a couple of percentage points. So I think that was very important for your project, Santiago, when I asked you, is your results close? Yeah, so okay. All right, so that's all I have for today. So thank you everyone for joining me. And hopefully I'll see all of you tomorrow. Tomorrow we have our first invited speaker series, which is very, very exciting. It's always such an honor, and because all of these invited speakers are first authors in ACL, they are usually doing a master's or a PhD or a postdoc or a professor. And a lot of times when they finish, they become research scientists in like Meta, Microsoft, or like, they have a great career trajectory and they're at great universities. They are going places. They're doing amazing work. So, half of finding, like 99% of finding a job is through your network, right? So this is an important part of building. I feel like I don't need to convince all of you here. All of you know how to build a network for increasing your visibility and finding a job. It's usually the introverted students I have to try and convince. But make sure you connect with these people, make sure because they're going to be your colleagues and they're going to be the reviewers of your papers. They're going to be the people who offer you jobs, where they might even become your boss one day. All of this networking stuff is very, very important. So make sure you LinkedIn add invited speakers and things like that. Oh, some of them might become your PhD supervisor. So very important. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for spending your Monday